Yeah. I love the robot that has to introduce us. But okay. Hey, what's up, John Clark? This is Lucian Black with Into the Chasm. Thanks for coming on, brother.
Thanks for having me.
So John here is in a specific niche that is really freaking interesting because I've never heard of this combination of things before. He combines posture therapy and psychedelics, right?
That's correct. Yeah, I
That
call it
is so
Posturedelic
interesting.
therapy.
I saw that. I was like, wait a minute. I feel like that's an origin. I think that's a self hashtag right there. That's a really cool word, man. Cool. So,
Thank you.
you wrote this book, and if you wouldn't mind giving us the title and like, what's the origin of what inspired you to create this book?
Yeah, certainly. I'd love to share that. So the title of the book, you can take a look at it right here. It's called Psychedelics, Chronic Pain, and the Posturedelic Hypothesis.
Okay.
And uh, the I didn't graduate high school and think I'm going to be a psychedelic posture therapist when I grow up, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
Like my life kind of pushed me into this very specific line of work over
Okay.
time.
Sure.
And the way that happened was I broke my L5 vertebra in half. I broke a bone in my spine
Oh my
when
gosh.
when I was 17. I broke that bone in my spine when I was in a skiing accident, and I spent most of the next 20 years in pain. It was a little over 18 and a half years before I
Oh my
finally got out
gosh.
of pain after that
Almost
accident.
2 decades. That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's a lot of pain to go through.
And yeah, it was a rough experience. And I mean, for the first like I took about a year to recover, and then like the initial recovery, you know, and I was still in pain, but I got more or less back to my normal life. But then by the time I was a junior in college, I was hurting really bad.
Yeah.
I took a semester off my senior year for back surgery. That was a band-aid that worked for several years, but within about 5 years, I was to the point where I couldn't walk again, at least
Oh,
not without assistance.
yeah.
And I eventually ended up quitting my job due to disability and pain. I was working as a software developer up in Seattle at the time,
Yeah.
and I was walking with a cane at the time. I moved back to Albuquerque with my parents. A year later, I was in a wheelchair, and 3 years after that, I was still in a wheelchair. So
Oh my goodness.
it was just kind of a long downward spiral, you know,
Yeah.
and
Looking for the
uh,
progression, not seeing it
yeah, and it kind of no matter what I tried, and I was doing all the things I was, at least at first, I was doing all the things I was supposed to be doing. But
on paper. Yeah.
when it became clear that the situation was becoming more hopeless. I was not being a good participant in my own recovery when I started getting involved with things like really excessive drinking and
Yeah.
I was in a suicidal depression at that point,
Sure.
and
Yeah. That's rough to go through.
um, but eventually I found something called posture therapy, which got me out of the wheelchair eventually. Within about 9 months of starting it,
Wow.
I was out of the wheelchair. And it was a great recovery, especially in
Yeah.
terms of mobility and things like this. But 18 months after I was out of the wheelchair, I was still in pain.
Yeah.
Right. There was all these aspects of I was still was not a high functioning person. I was high most of the time, but I wasn't functioning.
Yeah.
I was high most of the time because that was what it took to not swallow a bullet. The pain was so severe.
I understand that 1000%. Sure.
And so eventually the mushrooms kind of found me. It wasn't
Yeah.
something I sought out. I didn't know
Yeah.
anything about them. But one day my CPAP broke, and which is a machine. If you're not familiar, anyone listening who's not familiar, it's a machine you use to help with snoring at night.
Yeah.
And um, I couldn't sleep without one of these things. So I found someone on Facebook who had a used one, and I met up with him, and he noticed I was kind of walking funny and stuff. We started talking, he hit it off, and he's like, you know what? Hold on a sec. He goes into his house and he comes back out with a little bag of mushrooms, and he says, "Here, you can have these. You never know, they might help."
Yeah.
And I didn't really know, like I said, I didn't know anything about them, but so I was like, okay, thank you. Kind of sounded
Yeah.
like hippie bullshit to me.
Free gift, but okay. I don't know what's up with this. Yeah.
But you know, they looked fine. I looked up on the internet. They didn't have like any signs of mold or anything like that. I was like, okay,
Yeah.
they look fine to me. So a couple weeks later, I decided when I was having a really bad day with pain, I decided to eat a very small amount, very small
Yeah,
amount.
like a microdose.
A little more than that, but
Yeah.
not to the point where I had like I wasn't seeing anything.
The walls
It
weren't moving.
was no. It was
Oh,
just like it was just I noticed that my muscle spasms, I noticed it was really effective at treating my muscle spasms. And I
okay.
noticed that it had helped my nerve pain a bit. This was about 0.75 grams, the
Yeah.
dose I was on. And so it was a mild dose.
Yeah.
And but I noticed that it was for me at that time, more effective at treating my muscle spasms than any pharmaceutical I had been prescribed.
Wow.
Now, I had been studying to be and now I want to preface this ability to treat the muscle spasms and the nerve pain. This is
Yeah.
the least interesting thing that psychedelics can do for pain. The absolute least interesting thing. Okay,
Yeah.
everything else I'm about to talk about is way more cool than the fact
Yeah.
that I ate a drug and yeah, my pain went away for a few hours. Okay,
Yeah.
great, right? No,
Yeah.
the pain came back. Okay, but I
Yeah.
had been studying to be a posture therapist for about 2 years by this point. I
Sure.
was not very good at it yet, but I've been studying and learning.
Practice.
And I I got this idea that what if I do a larger dose and with take advantage of the fact that my muscles are more relaxed. Maybe I'll get like a little bit. Maybe if I was like, in my mind, I was like, if I get like 3% more benefit out of this experience, I'll consider that a success, right? Like
Yeah. 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 Of course.
that's an improvement when I haven't seen an improvement in 6 months.
Sure.
So I got a larger dose and I did every posture therapy exercise I knew over the course or that I could fit into about 6 hours.
Yeah.
And here's what I started to notice at the beginning was that these exercises I had done hundreds of times, they were it was like I was doing them for the first time. I was noticing things about them like that. It was like my mind, like if you look at the kind of byline of my book, I call it
Yeah.
turbocharge or mind body connection. I was
Sure.
noticing things about these are corrective exercises. They're very different. They're different than like the type of stuff you do at the gym, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Of course.
But they're designed to kind of reignite the mind body connection even in a sober state.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
in this other state, in this more altered state, it was a much more powerful thing. And that was the first thing I noticed.
Okay.
That I was like, oh, I never noticed that my femur was rotated in this exercise, right? I was like, oh, okay. Like it gave me some insight into things exercises that I was doing wrong that I didn't know I was doing wrong. So
Yeah.
that was the first thing I noticed, right? So that
That's
was cool.
interesting. Okay. Yeah.
That was cool. But then something really powerful happened when I reached the kind of peak of the experience.
Sure.
And that was when my life like just kind of changed forever was
Okay. Cool.
I started seeing uh a vision or of a or an apparition of a
Okay.
musculoskeletal system that was doing every exercise that I did.
Yeah.
And I would go to a different exercise and it would do that exercise. And I could see, so I was like, now I was seeing these exercises rather than
Yeah.
just having to rely on how my body felt when I was doing them. I was literally
Like visualizing it and seeing it in real time.
visualizing inside. Yeah, as I moved, it moved. I'm like, oh, that's pretty cool. This is really cool
Yeah.
now. And then I started to realize that it was kind of interactive. Like if I thought I wanted to see from a different angle, I could like. So then I decided how interactive are you? I started to
Right.
wonder,
How
right?
is this visualization here? Yeah.
So I asked it out loud. I said, okay, what do I need to do to get better? And it started doing exercises and I started learning from it.
Yeah.
Right?
That's
Now,
fascinating, man.
I'm not saying that these particular exercises were the holy grail of what I needed to do to get better,
Yeah.
but what we know about psychedelics is that they have this unique ability to rewire like reorganize our our brain, the models that our brain uses
Yeah, your
to create.
neurocircuitry.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
It creates new neurons in your brain, especially you can just add a
Yes.
little bit to your water and drink it, and it will create new neural pathways in your brain, which
Yes. Yes.
stimulate growth.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah. Right. So,
that's fascinating.
uh, yeah, yeah. And what was happening, at
What an
least in my
interesting
opinion, what was
combination.
happening,
Yeah,
yeah. What I think was happening was all this studying I'd been doing for the past 2+ years about posture therapy. My subconscious was teaching it to me in a completely new way, in an
yeah,
interactive way. And I was
yeah,
never stuck after this experience. Okay. Like I did experience some some improvements in pain that were
yeah,
permanent after this, okay? But I had to work at it. I had to integrate. If you're familiar with the psychedelic
yeah,
lingo, yeah, I had to integrate
yeah.
the experience. I had to take these things I learned during this psychedelic experience and begin applying them rigorously in my own life. I started making
Sure.
incredible progress. I was never stuck on how to target an issue in my body again, and or at least how to come up with a new idea of how to
Yeah,
target it, right?
just kind of like
And six
self-solving at
months
this point.
Yes, yes. And 6 months later, I competed in my first disc golf tournament, and that was a 9 mile hike through the mountains,
That's
right?
crazy. That's crazy. So this was like
So,
9 months after, or so you did the 9 month initial climb back to normalcy, and then 6 months later you did this?
no, no, it was about 18 months. I'd been out of the wheelchair for
Okay.
about 18 months,
Okay.
and I had plateaued for about 6 months.
Yeah.
So, like, I made progress for like the first 18 months or so that I was doing, maybe 20 months or so that I was doing posture therapy normally. And then
Yeah.
I just hit this wall.
Yeah.
And now, okay, so why did I hit this wall? Why did the psychedelics help me get over this wall? This is something I had no idea about. Okay.
Mhm.
I had no, I don't know about the
Pioneer.
cursing. I
Yeah.
had no effing clue what had happened to me. Okay.
Yeah.
And I started reading about psychedelics. I didn't know anything about them.
Yeah.
I started going reading, and they're saying things like they can help you reframe your relationship with pain, and they can help you like see like view your pain in different ways or come up with new ways to cope with it. And I'm like,
Yeah.
that's not at all what I experienced. Like, what's going on here? Why isn't
Yeah.
anyone talking about this? But
Sure.
I figured mine must have been a fluke. I was like, okay, like they say that these healings are like spontaneous. They see them in the lab, and it happens every now and then, but meh, they don't know why.
Yeah.
I
Oh,
was
well,
like, okay.
have you talked to any doctors about this and like your story? And do they, I mean, are there any common misconceptions about this with doctors? And you tell your story and you're like, well, look, this is what happened with me, man. Like this is working, obviously. You're not in a
uh,
freaking wheelchair, right? That's crazy.
um, I honestly haven't been to a doctor in about 5 years, so
That's crazy. That's crazy. The fact that you couldn't walk and you're like, man, I don't need no doctor. And this is mostly just like your own self kind of cleansing, solving thing. That's crazy. Like that's crazy, crazy in the coolest way possible. Like I can't even imagine. It's like God or the universe or whatever it is, or the mushrooms just gave you the
well,
answer and you worked on it.
whatever it is, yeah,
Yeah.
whatever it is, I don't try to necessarily define what it is, but
Sure.
um, I did eventually want to figure out what happened to me and if it was possible for other people to maybe experience some similar things
Yeah.
in a more in a reliable and, of course, most importantly, safe fashion,
Yeah. If it
right?
can work for one person, it could work for two.
Yeah, why not?
Hypothetically. Yeah.
Hypothetically, but I didn't know exactly. One, I had no idea how to facilitate psychedelic ceremonies. That's a
Yeah.
whole thing to
You'd have
learn
to
in and
create
of
a whole
itself.
program. Yeah.
And I didn't have a mechanism of action in terms of what had happened to me. I didn't know.
Yeah.
And even if I had a mechanism of action, then I would have to figure out how to facilitate a session, come up with a protocol to leverage that mechanism of action, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So even though this happened to me in April of 2021 was when I finally did this mushroom trip.
Yeah.
It took me until, well, I released my book last week on June 4th. So
Congrats, by the
it
way.
took thank you. It took me that long to figure out all those pieces, how to put them into
How
place.
they fit. Yeah.
And then, of course, is it even possible to build a business around this, right?
Yeah, like this is
Um,
a whole new terrain. So this is largely your baby that you're carving now, because this is putting two things together. I don't think, I mean, there's holistic practices and there's retreats and stuff for mushrooms and ayahuasca retreats and stuff, but I have not ever heard of anyone uh mixing posture therapy and psychedelics. And now that you've brought this up, this actually is pretty genius.
uh, Thank you. I'm starting the first chronic pain mushroom retreats. That's my website,
Hey,
chronicpainmushroomretreats.com. I figure
okay,
that should be some SEO gold right
check
there,
it out,
right?
y'all. Sure.
But yeah, that's something I've noticed as well, that for starters, people in chronic pain are having severe mental health problems. Okay, like
Yeah, of
really
course.
severe mental health problems.
Yeah,
And uh they're so focused on getting out of pain that they're not as involved in the psychedelic community trying to treat their mental health problems, because I can tell you from firsthand experience, the pain is the top priority. I wanted to get
yeah,
out of pain. Then I realized, oh shit, I'm having a spiritual crisis. Like,
yeah,
after I was out of pain and I was still suicidal, then I
yeah.
found the I was like, oh wow, I need to use these things to heal these aspects of me as well,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, multifaceted. That's awesome.
And those are the types of things that we want to provide at these types of retreats. But it's this sector of people who are suffering very significantly are being essentially kind of ignored by the whole psychedelic renaissance at this point.
Yeah,
And that's a very unfortunate thing. And I can tell you exactly why people with in chronic pain maybe aren't flocking to psychedelics in droves. Is
yeah,
because, like, when, as someone in pain, when you hear that, like, the what you need to do is spend time reframing your relationship with pain,
yeah,
that just tells me that feels like I'm being told to give up. That
yeah,
feels like I'm being told that the best I can ever hope for is to not care about my pain,
yeah. That's
rather
a whole
than
mental
rather
thing that you
than
have
listen
to
to the
fathom.
pain,
Yeah,
rather than listen to the message it's trying to tell me and go try to solve it, right?
yeah. That's funny because
Um,
whenever I'd go through like a headache or some kind of physical pain, I think most people just immediately take something. Whenever I'm going through some type of pain, whether it's a headache or something, I've got GERD and a GRE1 malformation, so my brain's literally bigger, too big for my skull. So when I'm
right.
going through pain, rather than like, I will think, okay, what is this pain telling me, right? What is my relationship to this feeling, and what is my body telling me? Right. That
Hmm.
seems to be the biggest thing. And that would make sense to take something like mushrooms because it starts those new neural pathways. And if you're asking the right questions of your body, I mean, that's got to be a synchronistic relationship between
Hmm.
brain and body and soul, spirit, whatever that is.
Yes. And many times we find that chronic pain is rooted in emotional issues or past traumas. That is
Yeah.
also something that definitely happens. And that type of pain is exactly as real as if I, like, just break my hand with this spoon right here, right? Like,
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
that that is that is those two types of pain. The brain doesn't know the difference. It
Yeah.
processes
Of
it the
course.
exact same way.
Yeah.
And so when we do encounter situations like that, our medical system, our mental health care system, everything we have is really bad at treating it.
Yeah. Are
It's
you are
it's
you
just
in the
like flipping
US?
coins. Yeah,
Are you
yeah,
US
yeah.
based?
Mhm. Yeah,
Okay.
I'm
Yeah, you
in,
already know.
but this holds true for essentially every Western country and most
Yeah.
Eastern countries as well. Um,
Well, we basically have third world healthcare to some extent. I mean, even Sweden looks at their healthcare system like we're a third world country.
mhm.
Well, plus people don't push for these alternative therapies, even though there's so much, not, I wouldn't say there's just a plethora of evidence, but there's a plethora of people who
No.
are saying, no, this has changed my life.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, I had to keep on trying and trying and trying things until I found the things that worked like for my specific situation. And I'm not going to tell everyone out there that what I've done is going to work for you. Like
Sure, humble. Yeah.
I would never come out here and promise that type of thing, right?
Yeah.
But when the reality of the situation for people in chronic pain is that they are being legislated into a life of suffering.
Yeah.
And how long are how long are you supposed to take it?
Yeah, and I mean, some of these
Uh,
people don't even make it out of that because they get so stuck on the pain,
yeah, the thing that finally made me decide I was going to turn this into a therapy was when one of my standard posture therapy clients committed suicide.
Oh, wow.
Um,
That's awful.
she she was doing everything she was supposed to do. She was on FML leave or FMLA leave from work, and she was making progress, but it wasn't happening quick enough for the economic tides of modern society.
Yeah.
And she her short-term disability through the FMLA Act ran out. Her she lost her job, and then she told me she was about to lose her house, and then she was denied her
Oh,
long-term
gosh.
disability payments. You know, the insurance company said that she had long-term disability through, said that she wasn't going to uh, qualify,
Yeah.
and she decided that she was done.
Well, she didn't see
And
it
at
as an
that
option.
point, and at that point, I hadn't told anyone outside of my parents and my girlfriend that I had done mushrooms. I hadn't
Yeah.
even told any of my best friends.
Yeah.
Maybe I'd told my sister too.
Yeah.
You know, like I this wasn't something I was sharing with the world. I I couldn't be just like telling every person I met to go eat some mushrooms and try doing some exercises and see if it worked for them.
Yeah. And there
I
still
didn't
is
know
a stigma
anything.
against that. Yeah.
Yeah, and I didn't know anything about what the drug interactions were. I didn't know anything. Like the other thing was after I had had my amazing experience, my girlfriend tried some and then she liked how it felt at first and then she ate a little more and she ended up peaking twice and she had like what she characterizes as one of the worst experiences of her life,
Oh,
which
yeah.
traumatized her more. And now
Sure.
a couple years later, she has a healthy relationship with the mushrooms
Yeah.
and she loves them, but she learned to respect them in a very powerful way. And I learned via watching her experience, you
Yeah.
know, that I couldn't be just telling people go and eat these things and exercise and see if it works. I had to
Yeah.
have a way to make sure people could do this safely. And like, you know, for instance, for the people who want to go to my retreats, I have like full medical support, full mental health support, full shamanic support,
That's awesome. Okay, cool.
right? Like, it's not just like people going to Mexico and taking
Yeah.
drugs.
In the
It's
backyard somewhere. Yeah.
no. This is at like a private resort where there's like doctors on call, nurses on site,
Oh,
clinical
that's great.
psychologists to visit
Yeah.
with. You know, we're providing like what I call like a spiritual biopsychosocial model of pain management. So
Yeah.
we are going after like a holistic thing, you know, and we're going after making sure people are coming away from this in a healthy state,
Yeah. And that they
not
can
in a
trust it in the first
traumatized
place.
state.
Yeah. 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 Because that's
So
huge too, knowing that
mhm.
a lot of people in those situations do have bad experiences as well. So you got to prepare them for that as if that
It's
does happen.
certainly possible if when
Yeah.
people don't respect
Yeah.
the medicine will not respect you back. Maybe that's a nice way to put it, a
That
diplomatic
makes
way.
sense. Yeah. No, that makes sense. If you go into it thinking it's going to be a certain way, pretty often it's going to be that way times 100,000. So as far as you being a writer in such an interesting field of alternative medicine, um, what have been some of the challenges of you writing that book? How long did it take you? Or was this just an idea of writing your book all along? And what are some of
Mhm.
the challenges that have come with that, with publishing and getting, I guess, the retreat going as well?
Right. So writing the book was easy for me.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it. Like my problem was I had like this whole facilitation protocol in my head, and it was driving me crazy that it wasn't out there for someone else to look at and say, "Are you? Am I fucking crazy or not?" Right? Like,
Yeah, yeah, of course. Yeah, having someone else to help realign. Is this on point? Yeah, that makes sense.
so writing the book itself, at least the first draft, was really easy. It was once I got all my thoughts out onto paper and started then having to refine it and polish it and get it ready to a place where I was happy presenting it to the world.
Of course.
Creating I decided to go the self-publishing route simply because the publishing companies are they don't do very much for first time authors
Yeah.
unless
They
you've
probably
already
take a
kind
lot out
of
of your profit too.
oh yeah, quite a
Yeah.
bit. And so I designed my own cover, which I'm very
Hell yeah.
happy with the result.
No,
But
that's a
it
great cover, man. I loved it. Once I looked it up on Amazon, I was like, shit, that's a really dope. That's a really good cover, man.
thank you. But yeah, that was 2 months of like continuous improvement, right? Of the
Yeah.
first thing I started with, you would not have thought that's a great cover, right?
Yeah.
And then getting these retreats growing, this is going to be my biggest challenge for sure.
Yeah.
Uh, this is something that the world has really never seen before. Like I really
Very cool.
am kind of shattering some glass ceilings or breaking some paradigms, however you want to think of
Yeah.
it. This is some outside the box stuff.
Going after some
So
big.
I, I I won't be surprised if I have to end up postponing this first retreat. You never know, right?
Yeah.
But even if I fail at selling out this retreat, I'll succeed in tr- showing the world that there is some or showing a large number of people, all the
Yeah.
people I'm able to reach in the process of working on this and releasing this book.
Sure.
There are other options to explore at the very least.
Plus, all you need is
And
time for it to grow anyway.
right,
You
yeah.
may not just blow it up right out the gate,
No,
but
no.
effort. I mean, you're walking. I mean, that's big enough testament enough that time and investment in something can grow. And this is such an
Yeah,
interesting.
right.
Yeah, it has no choice but to grow if you keep working on it.
Yeah, and the for the people who are already interested in psychedelics and things like this, or who are hurting really bad and are just looking for something new, my book does have a complete DIY like protocol in there, essentially a harm
Okay.
reduction guide
Okay,
of
that's helpful.
look, if you can't afford, I couldn't afford it to go to the retreat I'm putting on, right? So
Yeah. Yeah.
um I understand that that I don't want this to be something that only the wealthy people can do, right?
Of course. Yeah.
Uh, and while there are plenty of risks associated with doing this type of thing at home, and I don't necessarily endorse it, I understand that once you put the information out there, desperate people are going to
They're
uh,
gonna flock right to it.
they're
Yeah.
yeah, they're going some at least some people are going to begin trying it. And in order to support the people who are in those types of situations, I have created online integration communities where anyone who's trying this type of therapy
Yeah.
or is just curious about learning about it can go to online forums where people can discuss anything related to
You
it.
have a Facebook group?
No, I'm not doing Facebook group. I decided to go
No?
with a Discord server on this one.
Okay, Discord,
Um,
sure. If you send me all
yeah,
your
yeah.
links that you want people to flock to, just send them to me in Messenger. And once I post this on YouTube, I'll put all the links to help people navigate to where they need to go.
Okay, cool. Yeah. And that, thank you.
Of course.
The integration community is like free lifetime access. As long as I'm on this earth, it'll be free to access
That's
that
nice.
server. And I just, my goal is, one of the I see the main purpose of my life is to help people get out of pain. I don't want
Yeah.
people hurting themselves trying this therapy because there are real risks.
Yeah.
I did this all completely unsupervised by myself when I was
Yeah.
learning it. And what I learned is that there is a good reason to have someone there with you
Yeah.
helping you through the whole experience, getting the equipment ready, helping you change positions, making sure that you don't lose your balance. You know, there are ways that
Yeah.
you could potentially hurt yourself, and I do not want anyone to ever hurt themselves doing this.
Yeah.
So that's why I just want to be really clear about that. There is support for people uh, who are looking to try this out.
Yeah, so if anyone's wanting to reach out to him, this is John Clark, and I will post the whatever groups or links he sends me, his Discord, so you can reach out to him, get some advice, or if you want to go to his retreat as well, that could be helpful. And are there any other? So you have one book on Amazon. Is it anywhere else as well, or just Amazon for now?
The book is exclusive to Amazon at this point.
Okay.
I maybe within the next 3 to 6 months, depending on how busy I am with this retreat,
Yeah.
I'll think about doing a wider distribution to some bookstores, or
Sure.
maybe a publisher will contact me. I have no idea what the next. There's already been like so many interesting people contacting me in the past week since I released the book,
Awesome. Cool,
So,
man. Well, that's how it starts,
um,
you know?
yeah, so I really have no idea what the future is going to hold for Posturedelic therapy for me, but I just know I'm going to work my ass off to make
Yeah.
whatever I can happen, and help as many people as I can.
Oh yeah, and you're your own testament to your success, man. I mean, you're walking. That's crazy to me. And also for one of my last questions here, do you have any advice for skeptics, for people who are skeptical of this idea, a way they could
Oh
approach this?
yeah,
You know,
yeah, certainly. I encourage healthy skepticism, and I I I encourage skepticism because that is what is going to help me refine this technique to get even better.
facts.
So, um,
Solid.
what I propose in this is version 1.0, right? This is version 1.0. I'm not saying that this is the end all be all of how to get everybody out of pain.
Yeah,
I'm not touting it as anything along those lines. These are the most powerful techniques I've ever encountered. But
sure.
I know that there's more out there, and I know that we can figure out how to facilitate it better. And the in terms of these skeptics, is this like complete snake oil or whatever?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Let's think about let's think about what psychedelics really do for mental health conditions, right?
yeah,
I think most people who are well read or at least even moderately introduced to the literature on psychedelics for mental health understand that there are some real tangible benefits.
yeah.
Now,
100%.
what would that look like translating to the body exactly? What mechanism? I talked about mechanisms of action earlier, but I never
Yeah,
really said what that was, right?
sure.
So when we look at what psychedelics do for mental health, psychedelics are making it easier for us to change the models that our brains use to create our individual simulation of reality.
Yeah,
That's
it's
what
changing
we're
the
all
blueprint.
experiencing.
Yeah, your
Yeah,
default
yeah.
blueprint, your relationship to serotonin, dopamine, and well, cortisol and stress as well.
All those types of things, but even things like with the ego. People talk about ego deaths. I personally prefer the term ego dissolution.
Yeah,
Our ego is a model of how we perceive ourselves through the lens of the world, essentially,
yeah,
is one way to think about the ego. It's
sure.
a model.
Yeah,
It's a large data set within our brain, somewhere
yeah,
within our brain, that defines who we think we are.
yeah. It's a bit of a
And
safety
what
net.
yeah, and now it can also get us into trouble, right? No, I think
Yep,
everyone's
like
experienced our
anything.
ego getting, yeah, but it can also be a powerful tool to help to enable us to achieve great things.
Mhm.
However, we can get this tool kind of like out of regulation, right? And what psychedelics are very well known to do is to take these models of how we perceive ourselves and make them more malleable. Okay,
Yeah,
and make it so we can maybe, if I've always thought that I was a loser, maybe through a really powerful psychedelic experience, I can find my self confidence and reattach with my masculine spiritual energy, something along those
sure.
lines.
That's some real
Or,
shit.
right. But when I look at, so the mechanism of action, when we look at how it's affecting posture, is actually the exact same. Our posture is defined by something in our brain called body schema models. Body
Okay.
schema models, uh, they're the, like I'm telling my elbow to extend and contract.
Sure.
It's a simple thought for me, but my brain is doing something much more complicated to make this happen, right? Infinitely complex.
Yeah.
If I had to like list all the things that had to happen for we'd be here for the next like million years trying to list it.
Yeah.
It's infinitely complex.
Extensive. Yeah.
And that infinitely complex framework is codified within a large set of neural networks in your brain called body schema models.
Yeah.
Psychedelics have the ability to make these body schema models more malleable, more pliable as well. So,
Yeah.
posture therapy over time, because it improves posture and because posture is the manifestation of body schema models in the brain,
Sure.
because body schema models tell my joints where to sit. Uh, Posture therapy modifies body schema models over time, kind of like chipping off blocks of granite with copper tools, right? Very
Okay.
slow, arduous.
Great analogy. Okay.
When I throw psychedelics into the mix, they make those models, they take that block of granite and make it more like a block of soft clay. And now I can just kind of sculpt
Okay.
it a little more easily,
A lot
a
easier to move
lot,
things
a lot
around.
easier to
Okay.
move. Still takes effort, and I still have to have
Yeah.
intention, and I still have to be prepared. I have to be prepared with how I want this thing to look at the end,
Of
right?
course.
But it provides the ability to target those types of changes in the body. When
Yeah.
we know how to make those changes outside of an altered state of consciousness, when we go into the altered state of consciousness, we can make these changes much more rapidly. Just like
Yeah.
we can make a change to our ego incredibly rapidly in a psychedelic experience, we can make a change to our body schema model incredibly rapidly in a psychedelic experience. This is
Yeah.
evidenced. This has been evidenced in the scientific literature for nearly 100 years,
Yeah.
going back to 1930 with Julius Zador doing an amazing study in Germany about treating people with phantom limb pain with mescaline. And he
Yeah.
was able to reduce phantom limb pain. And what we know about phantom limb pain now is, or he was actually able to completely eliminate it in some cases. And then in the 60s, another team out of Japan did the same thing with LSD. And right
Yeah.
now, Dr. Joel Castellanos at UCSD is doing the same thing with psilocybin and mirror box therapy, or he's studying
Yeah.
that. And so he's doing the same thing I'm doing. He's taking what we know works really well,
Sure.
and he's taking psychedelics and he's combining them for phantom limb pain. Okay.
Yeah.
So what I'm doing is already happening in the research community on other forms of chronic pain.
Yeah. You're just
I'm
kind of
not
carving your own niche out of it and what helped you beneficially personally.
I just happened to come across it. And
Yeah.
last week I posted in Reddit and asked me anything about my book, and a few other people chimed in. Hey, I've noticed that when I do my yoga during a psychedelic trip, it's like I'm my own chiropractor. It's like I'm aligning
A little more
myself. I'm
fluid.
like,
Yeah.
yeah, posturedelic means alignment manifesting. That's what the word
Yeah.
translated means.
Yeah.
Right? So other people are even coming up with this on their own. I just did the really hard legwork of defining exactly how we can leverage that mechanism of action.
Sure. Yeah, that's epic. And I know that the psychedelic therapies have been there's clinical trials in California with war veterans as well right now.
Hmm.
Where war veterans who have major CPTSD or like chronic pain issues, they'll administer like a microdose or somewhere between like a micro and a macro dose, somewhere in the middle. And it's had ridiculously beneficial effects for these war veterans, people who've seen
Hmm.
crazy things, who've felt crazy things, who have a mental pattern framework of a
Hmm.
certain anxiety or pain, chronic pain. They start taking mushrooms, and like the type of neuroplasticity that it creates with the new neural framework creates growth in these new neurons, and it creates these new ways to heal. And I think it's so cool that you're in this, right, like this, you're in this niche, this community that's growing. So I think that's so fucking cool, man.
Thank you. I think it's fucking cool too.
Yeah.
I'm meeting some really cool people.
Yeah.
I'm excited to see where this takes me over the next 6 months and a year. See what
Hell yeah, and
happens,
it's
and
nice to it's
I
nice to
hope that
meet
it
people
helps
and
so
help.
many people too.
Yeah, exactly. It's nice to heal people and connect with people. Likewise, it is here. Well, I know you were on a limited time frame, brother. If you ever want, we could always do another podcast. But I appreciate your time jumping on here, man.
Thank you so much. Yeah, this was a lot of fun.
Heck yeah. And yeah, anyone check out John Clark. His book is on Amazon. I'm gonna put the link in YouTube and everywhere else I post this. Is there any do you have a YouTube or any specific page you'd like people to go flock to?
The best thing to do if you're interested in my work is just chronicpainmushroomretreats.com. Even if you're not
Okay.
interested in the retreats, that's where you sign up for the integration community. Okay.
Okay.
And there's a link right on the homepage that'll take you to where you can sign up. And that's a free lifetime membership. I do have, of course, YouTube and Instagram and Twitter and Facebook. I'm on all the social medias. You can find
Okay,
me as
cool.
Posture
Cool.
Monster John. But so if you're wanting to if you're wanting to learn more in those directions, you can go there. There's a blog on my website with about 40 articles up so far, even though I just launched it last week, but I've been
I'm
busy.
busy. You're mastering your craft, brother. That's awesome. You're in it. You're creating.
And yeah, there's lots of ways to learn about it, I guess. And of course the book on Amazon. And the ebook is only $9.99. It's not gonna cost you an arm and a leg.
Okay. Well, perfect. Well, John, man, I appreciate you coming on. Like I said, if you want, we can link up again sometime in the future and we'll just stay in connection, man.
Yeah, this is great. Thank you so much.
Of course. Have a good day, brother. Appreciate you.
You too.
I see you, John.